Good afternoon. My name is Graham Boettcher and I serve as Executive Director of the Birmingham Museum of Art. I'd like to thank you for joining me today for another Director's Cut. This afternoon we're going to explore the museum's extraordinary collection of African ceramics. And many of you might not know, and in fact I was excited to find out myself when we first acquired this collection, that we now have the largest collection of African ceramics in the country. We have over 450 individual objects, and the word large is very operative, is a key word here, an operative term, because some of the pieces are quite large. The majority of the pieces in this collection are from one local collector, a Birmingham artist, a painter named Dick Jemison. Dick is has a wonderful sense of color and design. In fact, we have one of his paintings hanging right now in the administrative offices at the museum, so I get to see it every day. But he loves color, he loves design, he loves pattern, and I believe that that's what appealed to him about the ceramics in this collection. I'm going to be roving a bit today. It is a gallery filled with a lot of unique objects, and I want to be able to show you as many as possible and to tell some interesting stories behind the works. So I'm going to flip the view, and so you can get a sense of what we're talking about. So as I mentioned, we have over 450 African ceramics in the museum's collection. This represents, I believe there are about 58 individual pieces in this gallery. The works were acquired in late 2011 from Dick Jemison as part of a gift purchase arrangement. And we were very excited to bring these into the collection. The museum has long collected African art, and I want to acknowledge my wonderful colleague, Dr. Emily Hanna, our Curator of the Arts of Africa and the Americas, for helping me prepare for my talk today. I think those of you who know me know that my field is historic American art, not African art, and we're very, very fortunate to have 6 fantastic curators at the museum in all of our specialties, who are the resident experts on these collections. So I hope I do a good job and do Emily justice, but I want to thank her for helping me prepare today. One of the points that I'd like to drive home about this collection is the fact that ceramics are a central component of African daily life. Most of these ceramics are from West Africa. There are some from further south, some from South Africa to be precise. We'll talk about those specifically in just a moment. But in particularly in West Africa, ceramics have been a critical part of daily life for between 10 and 15,000 years. Now, of course, more recently, that's beginning to change as new materials have been introduced, not just in Africa, but worldwide. Think about all of the plastic and metal vessels that we use today. But ceramics continue to be made throughout Africa, and individual communities have their own distinct and rich ceramics traditions. But as most of us now are at home, sheltering in place through this COVID-19 pandemic, it might make us stop to think about what are the objects that are central to our daily lives? What are the things that we need to survive, to function harmoniously? Ceramics serve so many different functions in African life. They are central to families and communities. Vessels are used for all manner of utilitarian functions: cooking, serving food, beverages, brewing beer, storing and sometimes purifying water, storing food, medicine, valuables. They can have ritual functions. They could be used in ceremonies ranging from initiation rites to funerary rites, healing practices, divination. So there is a wide variety of purposes that ceramics serve in various African traditions. Now, those of you who are familiar with ceramics presently, I think many of us are familiar with the idea of a potter's wheel and have seen, we haven't done it ourselves, perhaps you've seen images or videos of ceramicists working away at a potter's wheel, turning the wheel and forming the vessel with their hands in the turning wheel. There's a very different tradition at play in Africa, namely the forming of vessels by hand. And I'm going to walk us over to the other side of the gallery where you can see an enlarged image of a woman building up a vessel by hand. It is a very difficult practice. It requires a great sense of mastery of the material. The walls of the vessel could easily collapse, and to get a vessel that has harmonious proportions, it really takes a great deal of skill in building a vessel by hand. Certainly, it takes a great deal of mastery to build a vessel on a potting wheel as well. But hand-built vessels, especially if you try to do them in any great size, require a particularly high level of skill. And when I talk about the size of some of these vessels, I want to call out this one in particular. This is the largest piece in the gallery. It stands, I would say, about 2.5 feet tall and nearly as wide at its largest point. But some of these, they're I'm 6 feet tall. Some of these come up just to below my waist. Here's some other large examples. And they have an almost human-like presence. They really have a great deal of authority in terms of kind of announcing their own presence. They're kind of unmistakably large objects. Now, I mentioned in particular that some of the pots were used for brewing. And these are examples from South Africa with this wonderful black surface. These are the types of pots that first got the artist Dick Jemison interested in collecting African ceramics. He was visiting wine country in South Africa with a friend, and he happened to see some of these beer vessels, and he was very interested in them, both as an artist, interested in them aesthetically. But one other interesting thing to note about these types of pots is that they are meant to invite the spirits of the ancestors. For example, beer vessels such as this are used in weddings in South Africa, and these are particular to the Zulu culture. And by serving beer out of these large black vessels, in effect, ancestors are invited to be present at the wedding with their descendants. Also, the black surface, and the black surface is achieved through cutting off the oxygen during the firing process. These are fired inside of kind of low circular wall-type kilns or in open mounds, and they're fueled. These kilns are fueled with branches or other types of organic materials. And then in this tradition, at least, the Zulu tradition, the oxygen is cut off at some point, which turns the surface black. And then it is hand burnished afterwards to give it this shiny black surface. And we'll just come up close on this so you can see the beautiful surface effect that is achieved. That blackness is also meant to stand in for the color of skin. Some of you who heard my talk the other day on our wonderful Carrie James Marshall painting, School of Beauty, School of Culture, heard me say black is beautiful as the three words that most sum up that painting. And I think that could be said of the pottery made in the Zulu communities, that this blackness is very, very prized, and it's because it is associated with the beauty of black skin and stands in for the ancestors that came before them. I also want to call particular attention to some of the decorations on the various pots. You'll see the X here. Most of them have some manner of raised decoration, very, very intricate patterns, which is certainly resembles decorative and ritual scarification practices, practice in some parts of Africa. But there is also an added utilitarian function. It gives the holder of the vessel something to grip onto. So I think most of us are familiar nowadays with OXO good grips, the handheld kitchen gadgets and bowls and housewares that have these extra thick rubber pads to make it easy for clumsy people like me to hold on to them. And this is sort of a version of that. But decorative, certainly, first and foremost, but also an added utilitarian function. Some vessels are very heavily decorated, and I hope I can get close enough to show you this extraordinary vessel, which comes from Burkina Faso. And I can't jump up on the platform without setting off the alarm, but I want to call your attention to the large, perfectly spherical vessel in the center, and then the vessel immediately behind it in the far corner. These have raised spike-like nibs. They are made by the Lobi people in Burkina Faso. And sometimes the decoration of the vessels calls attention to the contents contained therein. When a vessel has a kind of a spike-like or spine-like decoration that sticks out, that's kind of a bit prickly, if you will, it is a cautionary warning to anyone who approaches it to take care, take heed that the vessel contains something very, very important, maybe something of ritual significance or a potent medicine. And so in that way, the vessel sort of speaks for itself and gives the user clues as to what's contained therein, short of actually having a written label. But I just want to spend the next few seconds kind of zooming in on some of the pottery so you can see the fantastic detail. And that's really the thing that appeals most to me about these objects. As I said, I'm not trained as an Africanist, but I have a real aesthetic admiration for these pieces. I like the fact that no two are alike. They're all handmade. They're all unique. In that way, they're sort of like human beings. No two of us are alike. And it's remarkable to see the variety that stems from different traditions throughout Africa. And so I guess the one last thing that I would like to leave you with is a sense of why these fit in so well with our museum's collection. Some of you know that we have been collecting ceramics very intently and intensively for many, many years. We have the largest collection of Wedgwood outside of Great Britain. We have tremendous holdings of Asian ceramics, of Native American ceramics, of ceramics from the United States, both produced in factories and in the folk tradition. We have tremendous Alabama folk pottery, and we have incredible examples of ceramics now throughout Africa and throughout Europe. And so we think of ourselves sort of as the clay capital of museums in the United States. And accordingly, thanks to the generosity of a local family, the Bunting family, we have a ceramics biennial where we bring artists and scholars, not just from around the country, but from even around the world, to the museum to talk about the ceramics art and to look at it in a global context. So as soon as you're able to return to our galleries, I do hope that you'll come and explore our African ceramics collection. Like I said, no two objects are alike, and they're extraordinary works of art. And they're also works of art that have been undersung for too many years. For much of the 20th century, scholarship in African art was very much centered on ritual figurative sculptures and on masks. And the ceramic tradition of Africa has a no less rich story to tell. So I want to thank you for joining me today. Be well, be safe, and join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time for my next Director's Cut. Take care. Signing off.